And we are live.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is exhausted, sleepless, stressed out Luke Rudkowski here in Turin, Italy. Last day of the Bilderberg meeting. It is 1 o'clock in the morning here. I got another flight at 7 o'clock in the morning. The show must go on. And of course, I am joined by Jason Burmis, and we are going to be live for about an hour and 15 minutes. We also have a very special guest. Two guests actually coming up on this broadcast. And of course, make sure to share this video with your friends and family members. We, of course, will be answering all of your super chats, which keeps us fully independent and free. And unlike the corporate horse stream media at the Bilderberg meeting, we actually talk about the things that matter. And we don't censor ourselves, which is extremely important. And Jason, this is all I got to say for my Bilderberg coverage.
Well, hold on. Let's bring it back. I believe you put now 6 videos since you've taken off. You put out 2 yesterday. I think that this is our second video today. You had planned on putting out another one, but I know that you were detained during the final recording yet again. And let me just say this, Luke. Over the last 10 years, we've seen the Bilderberg Group put out a website, put out an agenda, acknowledge that they're not Santa Claus and a Christmas unicorn rainbow, and they actually exist. And through that, it seemed there were a lot more protests at first. That mounted up, but that's gone. And it seemed like people were a little more adaptive towards the press, but certainly not this time around. This was old school Jim Tucker, secret police, Bilderberg, saying, you're a terrorist, you have bombs, no cell phone for you. And, what was the final count? Because I know early Saturday it was like 7 or 8. I mean, we were easily at a baker's dozen. How many times were you detained, and how frustrated are you right now?
That's all I got to say, Jason. No, I lost count. I literally lost count how many times I was detained. Now, I got to say, some of the officers are very laid back. They're like, yeah, man, you're clearly pressed. They're just telling me to do this. Just give me your documents and hang out here. Other ones were like, steroided out goons who were like, we control you now. And I'm like, what do you mean control? It's like, we control you. What are you talking about? Like, what do you want? What the hell's going on here? Where do you stay? Like, and trying to intimidate us, trying to harass us. Charlie Skelton just got tackled by 2 Italian police officers for simply being on a public street and taking a photo of the Bilderberg members. They grabbed his video camera from his hands and deleted the video footage. So you never know what you're going to get here. You're either going to get an Italian cop who had his nap, or an Italian cop who didn't have his nap or his coffee, and they're just total buttholes. So it's always like, okay, what is this guy going to do to me? As they stopped me a number of times today, which prevented me from getting possibly 10 other confrontations that I would get with other Bilderberg members. But they try to stop you and detain you, but if there's a will, there's a way. And we got some really, really good videos. I still got more videos coming that people haven't seen yet. I just posted a screenshot of Larry Summers, the big bankster, who is a big Obama fellow.
Looks like Jabba the Hutt, not physically. Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what he looks like? He looks like a more put-together Harvey Weinstein. Maybe Harvey Weinstein without the rapey vibe, but pretty Harvey Weinstein.
More of the Harvey Weinstein cannibal edition that's going to eat you. If you look at the photo I just released, I put it on my Instagram, Luke WeAreChange. It's creepy. He was like jeering at us, like, we confronted him last year. He was pissed. He knew he had to put on a fake smile, but the more he tried to put on a fake smile, the creepier it was, and he just looked like he wanted to eat us, which is weird. One thing that's really interesting about this year's Bilderberg is that usually, we're very social. My approach during these confrontations is always try to be the bigger person. I could run up to him and be like, you scumbag, you piece of trash, you have blood on your hands, you war criminal, beep, 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 beep. I could curse them out, and I bet a lot of people would probably cheer that on, but my main mission here is to try to get other people aware of this situation that aren't in the loop like everyone else is, and if they see someone just running up to somebody cursing them out, that's going to make me look bad, and I would never stoop to their level, so I always go for the approach like, hi, I'm a journalist, my name is Luke Rudkowski from WeAreChange. let's have a conversation. Let's open this. Let's open up this dialogue. And if they deny it, they're the ones who are kind of hanging themselves with the rope that I give them. So that's always my approach. And this year, we gave them no excuse not to talk to us. We were very kind. We were very understanding, but we were also very to the point. We didn't back down in the initial questions, but all of the Bilderbergers, no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. And, you know, I truly do believe personally, just based on my own assumptions, just based off my own experiences with about 20 to 30 Bilderbergers that I had here, that they were specifically told this year, do not say anything. We saw Boylan Slot, who was last year's attendee, who is an entrepreneur who's trying to get plastic out of the water. He's not invited this year. Last year, I confronted him at the airport. He reached out to me on Twitter. We had a whole huge dialogue and interview, which you could actually see on this YouTube channel. If you look up Boylan Slot, WeAreChange, Bilderberg, you can see my full 20 to 30 minute sit down with him when we get into Bilderberg. He actually told me other stuff off the record, but he's not invited. Other people who spoke to the press aren't invited. So I'm fairly certain that they were specifically told, you talk, you're not going to be coming back, and you're going to be on our poop list. And we did our best. We did everything we could. And this year, no comment, no comment, no comment. And the best one is of course the one that we just released of the governor of Colorado. To me, that was him and the cardinal I was looking for the most. I was very lucky to find the governor of Colorado. I'm very happy with the confrontation. I do believe it is very telling, and it's going to be very important within the next 2 years. Obviously ramping up to the 2020 presidential election.
Yeah, absolutely, Luke. You've done an amazing job, and especially with that Hickenlooper interview. I mean, hello. So for those that don't know, John Hickenlooper is a presidential hopeful that the Democrats may be pushing with John Kasich. He is the governor of Colorado, and as you said earlier, I always loved that approach too. I used it last year with Zolik. Mr. Zolik, how are you? What are we discussing? That's how you approach somebody if you want some credibility. It's excellent. And then when they go, sorry, no comment, I would appreciate it if you just let me go shop. Well, why don't you answer the question? It is harmless. Well, if it's harmless, talk to us. You never yell
tell us
at
what's
them.
happening. It's harmless. It's innocent. Okay, fine. Open up and tell us what the hell's going on here. And of course they won't, which makes them look guilty. Now, of course, my approach is always I want an answer, and I want to give them no excuse not to answer. And if they don't answer, they look like they have something bigger to hide, which obviously they do, especially with the topics, especially with the two guests that we're going to have on the show later on. We're going to have Aaron Dykes and Melissa Dykes as well, who are going to go into this in depth. But just the sheer kind of circumstances surrounding this year's meeting is extremely telling and very worrying, especially for the entire world's population, to be honest with you, Jason.
No, absolutely, Luke. Again, this one was put in Turin, Italy, I believe, because of the police presence, because of their ability to silence the press, and I do think that people were told, because people were loosening up over the years. Well,
the Italian police are very heavy-handed, and they're known for being not the most civil police departments. They're known for a little bit of corruption, but Turin, Italy is also a very spiritual city. There's a lot of very important Egyptian artifacts here, and the Egyptians, of course, worshipped the god of light. There's the Shroud of Turin, which was the Shroud of Jesus, which is supposedly, according to some scientists, the cloth that Jesus was wrapped in after he was crucified and then came back to life and imprinted his image on there. So there's a lot of very spiritual significance, especially with the Vatican being represented this year. But let's move forward, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big thing we're getting out of this is the oil barons are back, Luke, okay? Big tech is there. The press is there in unprecedented fashion. One of the things is, well, they've lost the narrative, right? They're saying it's fake news, and that's what we're living in, is the post-truth world. But again, when you pursued media mogul Doffner, he didn't have anything to say to you other than, hey, let's schedule an interview. And I'm sure you got that interview, didn't you? Didn't you get that interview with Doffner later? He's going to do an hour-long sit-down with WeAreChange. Thank you, Mr. Doffner.
He's probably not, but I'm still going to push for it. I'm still going to contact him. I'm still going to reach out to him. And if he doesn't respond, I'm going to find him again somewhere, whatever public event he's at or whatever conference or gala event he's at. I'm going to ask him again. And if I don't do it, you guys could do it. This is the whole purpose behind Change Media University. If you guys just Google WeAreChange, Change Media University, we have a full online course that teaches you guys how to do this. And there's a lot of very important steps because now more than ever, power wants to be secret. And it is the job of a journalist to release those secrets to the public. And more than ever, they're hiding and trying to make sure that they are keeping you out of the loop. So definitely check out Change Media University. I hope other people follow up on the interviews we're doing here. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot to a lot of people in the alternative media community if these people get confronted everywhere they go. If you see the governor of Colorado, ask him a question. Ask him what he did at Bilderberg. Let's keep the pressure on them. I just tweeted at the governor of Colorado being like, hey, I'll let you clear your name up if you give me a sit down here. If other people retweet that, he can't ignore that. And again, the possibilities of him running and being successful during the 2020 presidential election campaign is very high. You look up his name and it's all presidential hopeful, presidential hopeful. This is the guy who was, again, a big part of revolutionizing Colorado with legalizing marijuana, taxing it, and now, you know, that will be a big, huge draw to people voting for him. And even though things are looking up for Donald Trump amongst his political base and amongst other people, and he's winning some people over now, you have to understand, everything is certainly against Donald Trump when it comes to the media and when it comes to the left-wing kind of outrage that has been pouring in and expanding and growing in a reaction to some of his inflammatory and very bold actions that he has been taking. I'm trying to say this diplomatically. So we are seeing a resurgence of the left, and if the other elections that we saw, the local elections and the local congressional elections, the trends are showing that the Democrats are going to have a clear advantage, especially with the mainstream media in 2020. So, I'm calling it here. He's going to be the top guy. That's what I personally think. It's my assumption. We'll see. And this video that we just released of him, which you could see below, and please retweet him, my tweet, so we could actually keep putting the pressure on him, will be very integral and very important to the future of this election cycle. Because again, just think about it. Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, Macron, Bill Clinton, some people even speculate Barack Obama, all attended the Bilderberg meeting, the speculation with Barack Obama, of course, because it was never officially confirmed, but all those other guys were officially confirmed, came to the Bilderberg meeting before they became presidents and prime ministers. So obviously the big money is here. The corporations, the interests that put people in office, that support them, that throw all the money at them, they're here. And these are the people who elect presidents, big money, and they're all here. So something to look out for, something to really, and just the way that interaction happened between me and the governor, I felt it. It was like he had a canary in his mouth. It was like he was made out of glass, just trying to protect himself. The energy and the vibe was like, oh, I can't curse, family-friendly show, but like his vibe was like, you couldn't feel it. You can't really see it because the lighting was bad, but it was very, very telling to see his reaction.
Absolutely. And Luke, some other people that were brought in, they didn't get to be president, but they were definitely pushed and they became maybe vice president. Joseph Biden, you've got John Edwards, John Kerry. These are all people that weren't, dated or year-to-year members, but they were brought in right around that moment. They ran for the presidency of the United States. They became cabinet members, vice presidents. So obviously, this is a very, very influential meeting. It's 1+ a.m. out there. Again, you've got to catch a flight. Do you want to wrap it up, Luke, and kind of give everybody your perspectives? Yes, you got it, brother. I know it's tough out there. We got them waiting in the wings anyway, so don't you worry.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been. This is like one of the most stressful Bilderbergs that I ever went through. Not sleeping much, having nightmares. I'm, having allergic reactions because I have allergies here, and it's just been like a very daunting Bilderberg, getting interrogated and detained so many times that I just forgot the complete number of times that I was stopped by the Italian police, and working all day, on my feet all day, barely eating sometimes. It was a lot of hard work, but I'm very happy I'm done it, and I'm also very grateful that you guys give me the opportunity through your donations and through super chats and our engagement and our conversations to be able to do this. And it means the world to me, and I promise to do more, and I promise to bust my ass, and I look forward to seeing some of the great work that other people do out there. And let's do this thing. The time is now more than ever. It's time not to just pussyfoot around and just be lazy. We have to step things up a notch because they're doing the same thing. Just everything that I got from this meeting, things are getting very serious. Look at all the meetings that are happening just this weekend alone. Something big is in the air, and it's time that we're prepared for it, and it's time that we know everything about it so we could come out at the end of it in a better way. So again, Jason, bring on your two amazing guests. You guys have a great show. You guys are in for a real special treat. Thank you, Jason, and thank you everyone for being a part of Real Independent Media.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke Rudkowski, and big ups to Luke, guys. I mean, I don't think you understand how hard it is to do a lot of this stuff, how stressful it is, not only on your body, but on your mind and soul as well. It's tough. It's not easy, guys. This stuff day to day, it can get overwhelming. Nobody likes talking to police again and again and again. I mean, that's the bottom line. So we hope that you check this out right here. This is the latest video, top Democratic 2020 presidential candidate confronted at Bilderberg. Or, subscribe. Make sure you have the notifications on. We got some great Bilderberg coverage here. Face-to-face, that's the one with Doffner. 5 other prominent members of the organization. Bilderberg lockdown. The interview with Charlie Skelton is on here. There's just so much great stuff. And I think that this is about to get even better because we are about to go to Truthstream Media, Aaron Dykes, Melissa Melton. I'm just going to let them eventually take it from here because they've done such a great job, and it was really my honor to get them to come on this program. All right, folks, we got a very special show for you tonight. WeAreChange is hooking up with Aaron Dykes for the first time in many years. I've kept in touch with Aaron, his wife Melissa, Truthstream Media in general, because, man, they've done some really amazing stuff with little to no promotion by the mainstream media or the alternative media. And Aaron Dykes, I can promise you, I've spent so much time with him, is one of the premier researchers on not only Bilderberg, which is obviously what we're going to be talking about most of the time this evening, but globalism and geopolitics in general. His wife is no slouch either. It is a pleasure to have you both guys. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, thanks for having us, Jason. It's good to talk to you again. It has been many years, and you've been researching all this time too, so.
Well, let's get into it because this Bilderberg, especially Aaron, seems extremely bizarre. We've seen a very big curtailance, if you will, in even alternative media coverage of Bilderberg, what it's about, who's there. In fact, some would say they've moved away from even discussing this as a power player meeting. There's a lot more coverage, obviously, in the mainstream on the G7, but you're seeing that across the board, no matter what they're calling is, alt-right or, Huffington Post is alternative. The Johnny Nonsense isn't really reporting on anything but what the mainstream wants us to, and one of the agenda pieces this year, Aaron, is the post-truth world. How interesting.
And there's been a political realignment with Trump, even if it was somewhat phony and just a resurgence of the same system, but things got shifted around and it seems like a lot of the truth fell by the wayside. I don't know, we're still around. I don't know if we're really the best representations of it, but I try to figure out what's going on. And we try to dig into the names and the history and stuff. I thought I was going to cover the tech stuff again, because that's been really important at Bilderberg in particular for the whole past decade. You've had well-known Silicon Valley officials pretty much taking over the Bilderberg meeting as the old line people are getting pretty old, and a lot of them dying. David Rockefeller died, not that long ago. Zbigniew Brzezinski. A lot of the establishment figures. The last one really there is Kissinger and some old fogies from Europe that nobody really knows that well. And so these new guys have been really revamping the organization and inviting in people who can do some scary things with computers and hacking and social media. And they're doing it at least part-time, moonlighting for the intelligence agencies of this country and of the globe, quite clearly. And they're also obviously hooked up with high finance. And that's what Bilderberg has come to represent, even more than the traditional military-industrial complex, if you will.
Well, we definitely saw a movement on that last year in Chantilly, Virginia, when we saw a movement towards quantum computers and CERN being invited for the first time.
Never happened before.
Yes, and it was on the heels of the announcement that CERN was actually going to be building, starting construction of a much larger Hadron Collider that would maybe take 15, 20 years to construct. If you can imagine that, quantum computing, there was so much last year that really did move it forward. We've seen Peter Thiel now on the board for more than half a decade, and obviously it's moved in that direction. Schmidt not on the list this year, steering committee member most of the years. You got to wonder if maybe he's played off on the list. We did see representatives, of course, for Alphabet and Jigsaw, the parent companies of Google. And you talking about, for instance, this movement towards artificial intelligence, which is another main agenda point by admission by these people. Again, now we get like a little paragraph. They're really nice about it. We don't have to wait for Jim Tucker, God bless his soul, God rest his soul, or somebody like Jim Mars, also God rest his soul. Lots of people in the last few years that did good work with this.
Certainly.
And now they just put out a list, and they give us a couple paragraphs, and now we're just supposed to say, well, thank you so much, Bilderberg. I guess, you know what? You're doing a good job. You say you're doing a good job, and it's the public good, so yippee-ki-yay.
Man, I had the chance to meet Jim Tucker many times, and I told him one year, I think it might have been 2012, the last year we all saw each other, hey, they have a website now, Bilderberg Meetings. He's, oh, no, they don't have a website. What is this internet? I don't know how well he knew the internet. He was pretty old, but yeah, they've got the website now.
And how does it?
Eric Schmidt is not in attendance here in 2018, but his people are there. The director of Google Engineering gave a presentation. The guy with the hard name to pronounce from DeepMind, that's a Google entity. Jared Cohen, who used to work for the State Department and is basically in Google, I don't know, for lack of a better term, special projects, he's coming at it in a particular kind of way that really played into what was the Arab Spring several years ago. It was a social media, there probably was some real pushback in those countries, but it's a color revolution, astroturf, social media kind of thing that they're doing with State Department type of tactics. And that's happening in the private sector and within the government. It's happening within the Republicans and the Democrats, the Hillary Clinton camp, I could go on and on. But this guy, Jared Cohen, who co-wrote a book with Eric Schmidt, who works under Google, now the Alphabet company, he isn't just building artificial intelligence and better algorithms. I'm sure he is. But he's also trying to control the information in a geopolitical term. He says he's going to protect journalists who are going to leak really damning information. He's going to protect the independent people who are going to put out the information to bring the system down. Well, maybe if the system is the Iran regime or the Russian regime.
The ones they want to bring down. Meanwhile, Google is censoring every real independent journalist that you've ever seen on YouTube, so it's kind of a joke.
So when they talk about the post-truth world, I guess the question is who's asking the question, who's truth and who's arena? because that's where we're at. I mean, the power of the people who control Silicon Valley social media, everybody knows the firms. They have tremendous power in this world at this point. And so that's a look at people like Jared Cohen, again, not just technologically, but on the global stage. And there's another figure. There's a husband and wife team. The husband is Polish. His name's a little bit tricky, but I think it's Radoslav Sikorski. He's an interesting operative. And his wife is the Washington Post columnist, Anne Applebaum. She's on the list. They're both on the list. They've been here a couple times. Sikorsky, by the way, is now on the steering committee. And anyway, his wife, Applebaum, who also has Polish dual citizenship, and they were almost the Polish presidential first couple. She was the first lady, almost. They didn't win. She is running these organizations dealing with disinformation, 21st century propaganda, and they really have an axe to grind with Russia. That whole thing is opposing Russia. So we've been through several years, several rounds, several layers of all the propaganda about Russia's rigging everything and it's under the bed when you sleep. Well, it's not to say they're a good regime. All these major powers are full of corruption, and it would be difficult to pick a really good leader at a really good place.
Not at this time in the
But this country has failed in many respects as well. It's not the free country it once was, and they selectively silence free speech when they choose to, and when they want the mass of people to look in the other direction and pick a new candidate and go with a new stream of politics, well, somehow everybody manages to follow the Pied Piper, even if you don't see where the music's coming from.
Well, now it's digital.
Well, you said a lot there, Aaron, and let's tail it back. And that's great stuff because, honestly, there's so much to talk about. Let's bring it back to Google being there and their AI projects with the military. We know they're working on artificial intelligence for drones. In fact, we had thousands of Google's employees sign a petition saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't want to program our own demise. Shocking.
Maybe we've seen the Terminator movies. Yeah, that's not a good idea.
We're going to sign off on this, and maybe, hey, I don't know, you want to listen. Now, did they listen? No, they did not listen. They went through with the program. And the thing was that a few people, shocking, did actually resign. About a month later, it wasn't thousands, about 8 of their engineers said, you know what, I guess I've made enough money. I don't want to, produce my enslavement. Just this week, Aaron, it actually leaked the emails. Why, of course they didn't listen. They were the internal emails on the projected sales that were going to be infinite growth potential starting at a cool $15 million for the software per year and working its way up to $250 million a year in just 5 to 10 years projected. These are the type of things that are being discussed at this meeting. And as you were just talking about the post-truth world, we know somebody who has now been covering Bilderberg for 10 years, goes there every single year. And that's outside of, obviously, Luke Rudkowski, who's over there, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, who's over there, Charlie Skelton, not a journalist by trade, most of the time a writer, but the London Guardian picked him up thinking it was going to be a lark, and now he's become, I would say, a journalist who is not only representative of the people, but deserves a friggin' Pulitzer Prize. Look at this man. On his Twitter feed, one after another, he's identifying them. He's talking about this quote-unquote post-truth world they're trying to build. And there was less mainstream articles than ever. CNBC was one of the few places that did an actual decent one. This Guardian article by him was obviously amazing. They've sanctioned him in the past. And get this, Newsweek picked him up this time. And it is incredible. The
Super Bowl of lobbying.
That's exactly. Cool. Great title, great article, but let's go back to that post-truth world, because you named a couple media moguls that are there. A columnist for Applebaum is a columnist for who?
Washington Post and a dozen other major papers.
She won a Pulitzer Prize for writing a book on Russian gulags.
Well, yeah, shocking, right? Like, these are the best people ever. Oh, it's all so shocking. They're such good folks. Man, I wish I could. Where was this tweet? Basically, you had Bloomberg there. You have the London Evening Standard. You have The Economist there. You have the Wall Street Journal there. You have Turner Broadcasting there. You have Lime, which is a huge one out of Europe there. And the list goes on. I'm missing people, okay? I'm missing people. Meanwhile, Luke here has been detained now 7 times. Seven times since he's been there. He's now been detained 7 times. He said they could basically make a movie about his life. He's told them so much. And a young man that actually lives out there, Josh Friedman, he went out there, and let's see, this is the gentleman here. Let's go to the news scene. He had his apartment, because he lives there, raided at 4 a.m. by the police. He had guns drawn on him. And they said they were looking for a terrorist, and he fit the suspicion. They snickered at him when he talked about Bilderberg, because obviously that is why they were there. Please go check this out. This one's the very bad things that happen when you cover Bilderberg. And again,
because nobody's really covering it, and the few people that actually legitimately are, they're trying to get them to shut up.
You know, interesting you say that too. Earlier today, Skelton had put that article out, like I said, that was here, this Newsweek article, which again is absolutely fantastic. I encourage everybody to go check it out. I actually got at him because Google seemed to have delisted it for a time. When we, right here, if you take a look, and I even put on duplicate articles, because I was just looking to see if anybody was reporting on this, right? Because we had so few articles out there. I did the Google News Archive search. If you'll notice, Skelton's article didn't appear. I immediately got at Charlie on Twitter. He said he realized the same thing. About 15 minutes later, it got put back up. But that just shows you, no, he does go extremely well at these people, saying, hey, look, BP is here. Big oil is here in a big way again. Technology is here in a big way. AI, and it looks like they're croning up. And again, in this post-truth world, whose truth is it? It sounds more to me.
That's the point.
Let me draw an analogy. We watch a lot of archive films, so we were back in the 50s. You know, this is the height of the Cold War and communism, and they've got an interview at the State Department with the guy who's in charge of the sub-department on information, and says, what is it that makes their side propaganda and our side information? And the guy can do nothing else but laugh until he formulates an answer. It's great.
He can't even look at the camera.
What is it that makes Russian side propaganda?
But weird
side,
information.
It's just information.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you've recently seen the Council on Foreign Relations member talking about how he was often called at his job as the chief propagandist for the State Department, said it was not only necessary but encouraged for countries to do against their own people. And then when he was asked one final question by a man saying, well, what about the impact of propaganda on third world countries, he said, you know what, I hate final questions, laughed about it, and walked off stage like it was a party. You know what? Those people don't seem to matter. You know, when you're this big, it doesn't seem to matter to these people.
That's what the post-truth world is. If there's a toenail broken in Russia, it's a capital crime. All American cameras and papers on it. You know, Putin must be removed, whatever the narrative is. But when it happens to an American journalist or someone in free Europe, it doesn't exist, not because it doesn't serve their narrative, right? I mean, why not just let the truth fall where it is and let all sides look bad when they oppress people?
Because that's not how it's going to be. The post-truth world is the world they control the truth in. The truth no longer exists. It's like a few years ago, Bilderberg asked, does privacy exist? Well, they know very clearly from the technology they're pushing that it doesn't. So it's a rhetorical question at best. So the post-truth world is, you could say it's fake news, and that's true in the first sense, but in the underlying sense, what's really true is that these people have basically built a matrix around us, and the truth is whatever all of the people in that room decide it's going to be on whatever particular day.
I would completely agree with that statement. And again, it seems like they feel like they're losing control of the narrative. And a lot of people aren't paying attention to this demonetization on YouTube. We can no longer live stream monetized, basically. We are demonetized out of the gates. Every video, as it gets uploaded, if you have the preset to automatically monetized is demonetized out of the gates for us. When you go to hit that button, I have now timed it. I can't refresh the browser quick enough. I choose monetize in all countries, demonetized, up for review. We could literally put up something that said, happy clown kitty pictures.
I've tried that before.
And I could be eating ice cream with a party hat on, with a kazoo in my mouth, and it would be up for review.
Actually, can I see that video?
We may make it. We may make it. Just to make that point that it's absolutely demonetized.
You should do it and then do a video on how they demonetized it.
You got to do it. You'll do it. I'll live stream it and show how they demonetize it. I'll live stream it from another channel, and then everybody can watch how this is actually a reality. And it's all fun and games when it's people like Truthstream Media, WeAreChange, Press for Truth, because we're conspiracy theorists and we don't seem to matter. See, it's okay to demonetize us, but what's going to happen when those people that review movies realize, well, now Turner Broadcasting doesn't want to sponsor your video anymore because you gave the new Star Wars movie 4 stars. So we're going to demonetize that one. So now you can't be honest about your stupid movie review. And it just shows how self-censorship will creep back past politics, where obviously it's one of the most important places for freedom of speech, but into every single aspect of our lives. And that's why it's important for the proletariat out there, the people that don't really have a grasp of what we're talking about, to get educated and get moving and realize it's, it's beyond some blowhard behind a microphone telling you what to believe. Go check this stuff out yourself. The documents are there. You can read them. You can check out who these people are, who they do business with, and it seems like it's a big weekend for business. Now, outside of the G7, there's some other interesting things going on, Aaron. Why don't you tell us about them?
And Melissa dug most of this up, but I'll go ahead and intro it. And, just by the way, YouTube was one of the greatest ideas ever. Let individual people, wherever they are, broadcast their ideas. If they have good information, share it. And then Google took it over. But it still wasn't bad yet, exactly. I mean, they came up with the idea of monetizing it, letting individual people make advertising money if people decide to watch their video. But they're using it as a way to control and censor and strip down speech and neutralize words and neuter the language and change the meaning of things.
Absolutely.
And outlaw thoughts. Everything was predicted in 1984 in one sense of it. But look, all that technology stuff is very important. It's been developing very sharply over the past 10 years, and Bilderberg has been a good snapshot of that. But this year, it's really back to geopolitics, because this shadow meeting that certain people like us focus on is directly overlaid. It's happening on the same days, not only as the G7, but an important NATO defense meeting where they're discussing their new strategy to amp up the troops and the response on the Russian border area in East Europe. Most all those countries have been brought into NATO, like 10 or 15 years ago, and they're using those partners to ready this response. They're ramping it up. They're running an exercise right now in the last couple days at the same time these meetings are happening, with at least 18,000 troops on or near the Russian border and in the farmost eastern countries. And those include Estonia, Lithuania, and Poland, all of which are heavily represented at this meeting in 2018. And while Poland has had representatives there before, I don't recall seeing Estonia and Lithuania there. They're usually such small countries they get overlooked, but not this year. They're there along with 8 other heads of state and many other ministers of defense, secretaries of state, and high officials in general. You've got at least 3 ex-intelligence chiefs, and they are coordinating with NATO. The head of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg from Norway, is at Bilderberg, and he goes pretty much every year since he's been NATO director, and he's at the same time, yesterday, today, tomorrow, in Brussels with the NATO meeting. It's happening. And tell them what else is happening.
No, it's at the same time. All of these things are happening at the same time, and then for the first time ever, you have the Vatican coming to this meeting too. So you have over 20 countries being represented at very high levels of government. plus all of these people in the U.S. government that have a lot of these people, Trump-related people, and people pushing that agenda, which has been very heavily focused on Iran lately, if you haven't noticed, very heavily. And at the same time, you have the G7, the Group of Seven is meeting on the same day that you also have, sorry, we're getting like some kind of flashing thing.
Is this coming through?
Sorry.
No, I see you guys fine. Just keep going.
Cover that?
We're fine.
That's going to give me a seizure if you don't cover it.
I'm sorry. Something.
Sorry, the screen is doing some kind of weird thing. Apologize. I guess what I was just trying to say is that I looked into this going back 20 years at least, and then I gave up because I just couldn't find it having ever happened before, that you have a Bilderberg meeting happening on the same 2 days as the Group of Seven, where you have the 7 leaders of major countries, Canada, United States, United Kingdom, France, Italy. I mean, you have all these people in the same room on the same days as Bilderberg going on at the same time as a NATO defense ministers meeting that's being chaired by the Secretary General of NATO, who's also going to Bilderberg. It's as if all of these people are all in the same room on the same day, and that hasn't happened. I went back 20 years. I couldn't find it.
It hasn't happened, and what is it? What is going on? Obviously, the U.S. and other countries have targeted Iran and said they want regime change. Not everyone in Europe is happy about that. Not everyone in Bilderberg is happy about it. But guess who else is meeting about it? China, Russia, and Iran right now on the same days.
At the same time.
While Bilderberg is going on, Putin and the Eastern allies, they're having their own secret meetings. Something very big is in the works. And Putin was on TV, yesterday?
Putin went on TV the first day of Bilderberg and talked about how World War III would be really bad for us all. So he wanted that message to be out there on the first day of Bilderberg. That was what he had to say.
We cover this in detail in our latest video on Truthstream Media on YouTube. Something unprecedented is happening at Bilderberg 2018. And, they always have war on their mind. We know that. We know that they make up the primary membership of the military-industrial complex, unless you don't believe in that. They're filled with media lackeys and hacks who will report whatever propaganda they shovel through them with the talking points. The world's most important financiers, banksters, media personalities, social media, they're all there, and lots of high-level politicians. But what is it all surrounding? It's been leading up to the big chess piece of Iran for as long as I've been conscious of politics, since the Bush administration, but now with the realignment under Trump, now that so many people have decided, well, Bush and the Republicans and the neocons, that wasn't good, but Trump, that's a great new direction. Make America great. Well, they're going after the same evil Axis countries that Bush didn't get to.
Changed.
Who did Bush have on his list? George H.W. Bush and his very interesting cronies. They were going after Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. Well, he didn't get to Iran and North Korea, so guess who's going after him?
And not to mention,
tell me what's happening.
That 2 days after Bilderberg ends, Trump is supposed to be having what is being reported as an unprecedented summit with Kim Jong-un. All at the same time this is happening. I mean,
all right. Let's peel it back. We got so much to talk about. All right,
first of all, too much. I know. I'm saying.
Well, no, it's not too much. It's a lot going on in the world because let's get to Iran. First of all, one of the really compelling things that isn't really out there in the public that I'm concerned about in Iran is that all the way back around Christmas of last year, we're now talking about 6+ months ago, it was reported that Ahmadinejad had been arrested, and no one's seen him since. Now. That was a report. It was, New York Post, Drudge picked it up, but no one ever followed up on it. That would tell me there's definitely some internal turmoil in there and definitely some intelligence moves because he was a veritable demon. Remember, he was going to wipe Israel off the map. He was great propaganda. Meanwhile, he was walking around in a suit. He really didn't want war with the United States or Israel. And now he doesn't seem to be around. We know that about a month and a half, 2 months ago, there was at least an attempted coup in Saudi Arabia. There is a video of gunfire, heavy gunfire, outside of the hotel where really a coup d'etat did take place, where many Saudi billionaires who for decades upon decades, their families ruled over in this You know,
they took them to the mattresses.
Yeah, they took them. Well, the other thing is you had United States diplomats there, European diplomats there. It's never been reported who's outside of the families that have either bought their way out or have not. So there definitely under Trump was this crazy realignment. Then you had Syria. You know, he said he was getting us out, Aaron. He said he was getting us out. And, you know, we do this weekly show.
I still believe it, really.
Well, again, we have this weekly broadcast, and I'll give the man credit where credit is due. You know, he's talking about decriminalizing marijuana federally, Trump 2020. but at the same time, he starts talking about in a very small speech at a college, I think it was in Idaho, that he's going to get out. And everybody starts saying, you know what, that's a bad move. That's a real bad move. You just appointed John Bolton. John Bolton's like, it's a bad move. And then he says it a couple more times during the week. And then all of a sudden we have this chemical attack that never happened. James Mattis, before Congress, wouldn't even admit a chemical attack happened. He said, I believe an attack happened, but even if we can prove that one did, we wouldn't be able to prove who did it. Well, it's been disproven that any kind of a chemical attack took place whatsoever. Assad has now been on the media several times explaining that it was a possibility. There's been no pushback because it was Johnny Hoax-a-lot, but we still sent missiles. We still hardline missiles. Now, a lot of those missiles were knocked down. In an interview only a week and a half ago, Assad said that, and this had been reported earlier, not from Assad's mouth, that Russia and the United States had coordinated those missile strikes as to not pop World War III off as Russia had threatened. And that would seem to be the case because nobody died, okay? It didn't seem like any military targets were hit. A lot of those missiles were knocked out of the sky. Assad said that, you know, through better heads and Russian intervention, that did not pop it off. But now there is that realignment. They still want Iran. And just like you said, Aaron, you have Russia, Iran, and China meeting. And, you know, China is amping it up in the Chinese Sea with all sorts of, you know, you can't really call it naval technology, sea equipment. You know, I guess they do have a navy. I don't know if they call it that. But they have a ton of equipment moving there. So is this, and the thing is that those are the countries that don't seem to be on board with things like the European Union, globalization, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, NATO. They don't seem to want a quote-unquote new world order where global governance is the answer. They seem to want to be separate with their own systems. And quite frankly, I want China to be separate, seeing they have a social credit score for their citizens that has now been implemented and is extremely effing dangerous. Yes, and so to me, let them stay that way. Why would we ever want to engulf them? But with all this, you know, military posturing, with Russia saying, hey man, eventually we're coming to play ball. Where do you see it going in the next 6 months? Because I don't think the United States is ready to get, in fact, Assad said one of the other main reasons that we didn't see it pop off is that citizens of the United States did not want to attack Syria. They didn't buy into the chemical attack. They weren't rah, rah, rah. You know, many people really didn't buy into it this time. So, Aaron, Melissa, I'm going to give you guys the floor. What is,
do you want to go first?
You know,
sure.
What is the next big conflict? What are we going to see happening geopolitically in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, I don't know. And really, to be honest, I haven't followed the day-to-day news that closely, but I am still aware of the larger picture. And you've got to remember, they did a fairly decent job of convincing the world, not this year or this decade, but 50 and 100 years ago, that the world is shrinking. Technology is making the world smaller. It is inevitable that a global government should arise, so it should be like this. And most of the global government propaganda we've been subjected to comes from that Anglo-American sphere. It's U.S., British, and European based, and they're crafting it around their version of world order. So naturally, Russia and China have a little bit of qualms about just submitting to that when, hey, they've got lots of people, they've got lots of territory, they've got lots of money, and honestly, who is more moral? Is there a country that's in power that just, they have some kind of moral superiority that They get to lay down the rules for everyone. You know, it's a toss-up. It's a post-truth world, and it's a football scramble for who's going to have the best propaganda. For a while, the move on Syria was working fairly well. They threw out a couple false attacks. They had ISIS as sort of a diversion and a camel's nose under the tent. They had the white helmets. But there was a point, and it was a turning point, where Russia entered into the Syrian theater, and they said, no, we kind of think a certain Anglo-American group is basically trying to just do a regime change for their own purposes. We're not going to go for it. And by the way, I think we know who's really running ISIS. Putin actually said that.
He did.
I'm paraphrasing, but very close to that. He dropped some very interesting claims that a lot of people have known to be at least based generally in truth. Of course, he's using it for his purposes, and let's never forget that. But the demonizing and the one-way street of propaganda has become a weird tool of American hegemony and domestic propaganda, really, for punishing people. If you dare to speak out against what the U.S. and Britain and the powers that be are doing, well, you must be in with Russia. You must be...
Twitter has begun sending out messages to people on Twitter, letting them know you may have linked to a Russian-backed account during the last election, as if we're back in some kind of McCarthy era, except it's now digital.
I mean, they're very silently just deleting people's records offline. They're punishing people with strikes and demonetization, and they're burying them in the algorithm, but they're also trying to shame people. Oh, I don't want to be associated with that. What will people
scare
think?
People. They're trying to scare people.
And, I mean, there remains to be seen how well it's going to work. Again, I would mention Ann Applebaum and the Polish man, Radoslaw Sikorski. They're a husband and wife team, and they're a great case study in what really is probably meant by the post-truth world. Is there still privacy? What is propaganda and disinformation? They talk about this stuff more or less openly. Go look up what they've been into.
Just no one's paying attention.
Consider why those people, of all people, were one of the 120 people invited to this meeting. They're playing a fairly dirty game. It's reminiscent of any number of CIA tricks, dirty tricks and stuff. You know, when it's not time to go for all-out war, there's lots of other stuff you can do.
Well, not to mention, you know, Petraeus is now a mainstay there.
Absolutely.
Military intelligence, you know, we talked about the old guard kind of going by the wayside. You know, I can't see Kissinger making it another year. 98 years old. I can't believe he was even around to talk to Trump when he first got into office. You know, there's some really great people backing Donald Trump. You know, Warren Buffett's excited about the Trump economy today. Jamie Dimon's excited about the Trump economy today. You know, people like Kissinger love the Trump train. Michael Bolton, big-time neocon, PNAC member, connected to these guys, Aaron, up and down, wants to bomb Iran more than anybody else, wants to bomb North Korea. Again, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I love it. That's exactly, I had to catch up on clips in the last couple days. She brought some to my attention, and there's John Bolton saying, by 2019, we're going to be coming at you from Tehran with one of those "we are victorious" kind of speeches.
This is what happened. Last July 2017, before John Bolton was a twinkle in the National Security Council's eye, he was at the Free Iran conference telling them basically that they will have a regime change and they will be celebrating in Tehran by 2019. That is what he straight up told them. And then
so that's your time frame, not 6 months, but he's saying by 2019,
it's going to start. Well, see, and here's the thing. So then, back in March, right before John Bolton officially came in, Rudy Giuliani was at another Free Iran conference, and he started a chant with the audience, regime change, regime change.
Openly.
Openly. It is so bizarre.
Well, you know, I love Rudy Giuliani. I mean, he's just the best.
And that's why I'm saying we are coming full circle in a weird, ugly kind of way.
Back in the day, in the Cold War, they just regime changed things. It was all silent, it was hidden, it was secret, it was covert. They didn't talk about it. There was a whole narrative about it. It was a coup. They were like, we don't know how that happened. The CIA went, I don't know. Now, today, they're just openly telling everyone, this is what we're doing. That is how it is. And maybe that also is part of the post-truth world, because they are blatantly putting it in everyone's face right now exactly what they plan to do. because 2 days after the Iran deal got dumped, it was going around, and the Washington Free Beacon reported that they were passing around white papers up in the upper echelons of the White House about the upcoming regime change of Iran. That is out. That is on record. So that's already, I mean, within weeks of him coming in, they're already passing around the white papers from a think tank connected to him, just by the way, all about that.
And it's all set up in a familiar way, but for me, this is just full circle to John Bolton. He went to Bilderberg in 2003. That was the year he went on record. And what happened that year? A bunch of lies leading into the Iraq War. He was part of the yellow cake fraud. He was part of the weapons inspection stuff. You know, go review his history. I don't remember all the details, but that's the kind of stuff he did in those days. And Giuliani, well, he's been making me queasy ever since 9/11, just like I know he has for you, Burmis. I know there's a million questions, and I like to think WeAreChange in particular, specifically, and quite possibly Luke Rudkowski in particular, derailed that man's presidential campaign. What a nightmare he would have been. And yet here he is openly saying regime change in Iran.
He wasn't just saying it, he was chanting it.
Iran is not just some third world country. It's got 80 million people, and it is the chess piece, the country that Brzezinski, I don't know why I'm blanking, Kissinger and Brzezinski have said for decades would lead to World War III. Putin and the Russians generally, and China specifically, have all said that Iran will be the domino that would lead to World War III. If you dare to do Iran, you're biting off a big piece. Syria, not good. You know, maybe it's going to split the world. Maybe it dominoes into a World War III, but still a small piece. Iraq, pretty big, but Iran, so much bigger than people realize. And they're just waltzing into it and brazenly declaring, I can't believe it.
Yeah, and the Senate knows it, because they were just asking Mattis, like, a little while back, does the Trump administration think that they can unilaterally strike Iran without congressional approval? So they are obviously worried that it's going to happen, or they wouldn't be asking him about it. And he totally sidestepped that question. He also sidestepped basically the question about regime change. So he wouldn't talk about it. And that was happening around the same time that these white papers were being passed around in the White House, openly talking about the regime change plan for Iran, because that is what they're planning to do. And I think that's why you have on the topic of Saudi Arabia and Iran at Bilderberg right now. And Mike Pompeo, who used to be the CIA director and is now Secretary of State, back at the end of April, beginning of May, I think it was the end of April, he went to the Middle East and specifically met with Netanyahu and then met with King Salman in Saudi Arabia. So to talk about Iran. So
and again, Giuliani was just in Israel dancing in restaurants, obviously on behalf of a diplomatic mission to Trump. We know that Trump has basically said, hey, you know what, we're going to make Jerusalem the capital. Nobody batted an eye in the mainstream media in the United States for the Palestinians that were slaughtered on the Gaza Strip. I mean, literally slaughtered. Very hard videos to watch. Just last week, we had another medic shot down. We see an intense escalation to the point where actually there were rocket attacks from the Gaza Strip into Israel, the likes we hadn't seen for many, many years. I think at least 4 years. So we have seen a hotbed of actual military and then counter-military guerrilla-esque activity in the Middle East. Will that pop off into a larger scale war? Well, with people like Bolton and an American public where 95% of them don't even realize that Africa is going on and that we are bombing the F out of Africa and we're taking on jihadis there and have been doing so for 5+ years on the record, and people have
plus
no
all the
clue.
drone stuff.
Oh my! Yemen and everywhere else, and Israel's been fighting already a shadow war against Iran in Syria. They've been striking Syrian targets there. They've been striking Iranian targets in Syria now for a while. In fact, the day John Bolton came in, they did a strike that morning, a pre-dawn strike that morning, almost like a celebration that Bolton was coming on because they know this is the next phase or whatever. So, but Israel never confirms or denies their strikes. It just comes out in the news that it's probably them, right? But all of a sudden, just a couple weeks before Bolton came in, Israel all of a sudden came out in a rare, unprecedented move. Unprecedented seems to be the word for this whole thing. They came out and admitted that in 2007, they struck a Syrian nuclear facility or some kind of facility over there.
Yeah, North Korea involved.
And in 2007, they did it. So they admit it 11 years later. They're now suddenly admitting this thing they did in 2007, but they say the reason they're admitting it is because they want it to be a warning to Iran.
Well, actually, one of the videos I did a few months ago, as soon as they put, probably maybe 2 months ago, Swamp Thing, John Bolton. It's him boasting in, I mean, he is. If you haven't seen the thumb,
No,
I mean,
he's awful.
Literally Swamp Thing
He's
with a mustache.
horrible.
Actually, Swamp Thing did have a mustache.
He looks like
the Burt
evil
Reynolds
Colonel
version.
Sanders. Yeah.
No, he's Wilford Brimley without the Wilford.
Hey, you might be. Hey, I'll agree on all of that. The point is, he's on there being encouraging that Israel, because again, they don't confirm it, but he was saying that Israel had struck them. They were showing that strike. They were saying that, of course, the evil North Koreans were involved in that nuclear facility in Syria because, Syria does so much with North Korea.
Yeah, let's just throw it all together and put it in a blender. Hey, it's a post-truth world, right?
But again, that was in 2007 where the axis of evil was kind of a buzz term that was almost 5 years old. People had been getting sick of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda didn't have that same buzz, that same pop. That's why about 4 or 5 years later, all of a sudden, ISIS came out of nowhere. They seem to recycle the same exact enemies and then pit them against one another. And then conveniently, again, it's hard for me to believe, again, that Russia has again become the enemy. It's Rocky IV all over again. Only this time, the guy that's telling us that basically not only are they there, but they meddled in the election. It's an episode of Scooby-Doo. Those damn kids, they meddled in the election. Only you put a guy, Robert Mueller, in charge, who's still responsible for 80,000 plus documents that are classified by the FBI on 9/11. He's the guy that had his deputy director, Michael Chertoff, shut people like Robert Wright and others up when they were not only talking about Saudi Arabian money, but they were talking about Pakistani intelligence and their money and ready to blow the whistle. No, no, no. Then the left was actually asking questions. When he was sitting there purporting that they had weapons of mass destruction, we should go into Iraq, the left was like, hey, maybe Robert Mueller's not a nice guy. Now he's Jesus Christmas. Now he's the dude. I mean, people, it is mind-blowing. I mean, that's the post-truth world to me, Aaron.
Absolutely.
But on the other side of that, all of a sudden now, Giuliani is his mortal enemy when they might as well been in the back room stroking each other off in a bathhouse. They were so tight after 9/11. Let's be real.
Wow, you got away with words there.
I'm just saying they couldn't have been tighter. I mean, they were tight. They looked at each other and there was love in their eyes. Wow. And somehow now we're supposed to believe, there's something there. They don't love that Trump beat Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton would have went with just about every agenda that they had. I truly believe that. I think Trump went in there as a cocky guy that had all these connections, said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the greatest president ever. Look at me. I'm going to be the greatest. It's going to be easy. I'm the greatest man in the world. It's going to be great. Good for him. Good for him. But when you're surrounded by vampires, when you're surrounded by Goldman Sachs literally just like leaping into your administration. Yes. Jared Kushner. I mean, it was revealed not too short after the inauguration that Kushner was like, oh, yeah, Netanyahu used to stay at the house all the time. Like, what? The Prime Minister of Israel just used to bunk at your place, Jared? Yeah,
Trump
no
says
big deal.
he's going to be the most pro-Israel president we've ever had, and so far, I think that's the one promise he's kept.
Woo! We've been going at this an hour. It's kind of just flown by. What are some of the other major points, guys, that we did miss here? And before we get there, I do want to remind people, guys, you want to support this operation. You want to support Truthstream Media. First of all, you can go check their stuff out on Amazon Prime. I know that helps you guys out. I know you guys have a movie coming out on mind control, which I'm sure is going to be not only well-researched, but extremely well-produced, like everything you guys do. And right now, to help support our trip to Bilderberg, because again, Luke's been in Italy a few days, detained up and down. We've got these sweet Investigate Bilderberg hoodies. We've also got women's t-shirts with the same logo design and t-shirts. If you want to pick one up, it would definitely help us. Guys, do you have a Patreon or something like that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a Truthstream Media Patreon, and we've got our YouTube channel, good amount of subscribers, and we're still trying to reach people that way. But yes, this documentary on mind control, it won't be that much longer now. I wish I could give you a release date. It's soon. Keep in mind, think about us. There'll be a trailer. I promise you're going to want to see it. We didn't just do our homework. The both of us, and she's got her college degree is her master degree, comes from researching. I've tried to challenge myself to research, but neither one of us have ever researched to this level. We've been to the library dozens of times. We've browsed through hundreds of books. We've looked everything up, and we really tried to put the pieces together. So
this took us over 3 years.
I hope people will see that. I mean, I track Bilderberg and other news, on the yearly basis, but this is a special effort for us. And I mean, we're not perfect. We're just two people. We don't have a big fancy operation, but we did try.
So I'm going to guess that you did better than try, and I know that just doing this live broadcast on Sundays, a lot of people have asked us, to do more stuff on mind control and asked me, why aren't you doing a documentary on this? I'm like, you know what? Actually, I'm sure a good one's coming out because I know that you guys are making connections nobody else is with the pharmaceutical companies, especially now with this quote-unquote opioid crisis. We just did a really big video on that. You have to ask where Bayer's heart is now that they've signed a $66 billion merger with Monsanto. I'm sure their heart's in the right place. Yes. If you guys didn't know that, yeah, that's news this week while everybody was paying attention to Roseanne and her racist or not
some
funny
other
or kind of
BS
comment.
they get people to look at over here.
Yeah. The Bayer and Monsanto merger a go! Yay! All right. So, wrapping this up, I hope you guys are wrong, by the way. I hope that we're not going to see a giant global conflict. I think, obviously you share in that sentiment. But with the severity of the Italian police and the laws there that kind of were even able to further restrict any kind of free speech or real reporting over at Bilderberg. Dan Dix repeatedly detained. Luke Rudkowski repeatedly detained. Please go check out Bad Things Are Happening at Bilderberg. You know that there's something up. And more media than ever in the post-truth world, in an artificial intelligence bonanza. And I don't think people get AI. I barely get it, but it's something that, back in the day when we worked together in Austin, 2009, 2010, Hanson Robotics was there, and it was kind of like one of those pet things that I kept up on. And I remember just a couple years ago when the big story was that, they turned on this AI and it said it was going to put people in zoos, and that was the Hanson Robotics Philip K. Dick model, actually, that I've been watching for years. And, they were building children then. Things have gotten so much more advanced as nanotechnology has now been, I can't even remember what they're calling it, but there's now a level of technology that is smaller than nanotechnology.
Than that.
Yes.
Well, and I think what's being missed on the Bilderberg this year is everyone's separating out the topics, and they're focusing for some reason on populism more than anything else, which I think is kind of just yes and no, but they're talking about quantum computing, they're talking about artificial intelligence, and if there is some kind of global conflict or even just something having to do with Iran and the Middle East and Syria, don't think for a second that quantum computing and artificial intelligence won't be a part of that, because they absolutely will. And the post-truth world is how they're going to sell it to everyone. So all of those things go together. All the topics do, really.
No, you're absolutely right, and especially in a world where, cryptocurrency, even with this operation, Dash funded us for a month. The Bitcoin community is a pretty awake community. They're finding our videos, but it's also grown us accustomed to a cashless society, a digital currency. Well, that's all well and good when it's decentralized, but what if we become accustomed to it and it just instantly becomes centralized? Or one of the big problems... Yes, one of the big problems with quantum computing is supposedly as soon as we have the first truly scalable quantum computer, not a quantum annealing, or, there's a lot of arguments on what a quantum computer is. But when we have that first true one, well, cryptocurrency no longer exists because the algorithm is broken, and it will literally annihilate them, as everything will be able to be mined at once. So I don't think we know the implications of where quantum computing is going. Artificial intelligence is only growing stronger. We're already seeing automation taking place in, restaurants like McDonald's. It's here locally for me. They're now phasing out all of their cashiers over the next few years by 2020. We're talking about, what is it? That's 18 months away. By 2020, they believe China will have from 200 plus million CCTV cameras to 600 plus million CCTV cameras.
Let's put it this way, Jason. They are running quantum computer simulations now that are called sentient world simulations, which simulate the world on a one-for-one, all 7 billion people in it. So every big move that they make, and these people are talking about quantum computers, they're making them in that way, with a one-for-one simulation of everybody on the planet. It's the kind of thing most people can't even conceive of. I have a hard time conceiving of it.
I would put it this way. Out of World War II and the development of the bomb and the computer came game theory, John von Neumann. And if you can program the responses and you can model people's behavior, you can make some pretty damn good predictions.
Responses.
And I would also say some people will understand that when you gamble, the house always wins, and some people will never understand that because they think they can beat the odds and win. But when AI creates the house and they program the responses and they model the responses and then they cross-reference all that through various types of algorithm, well, they're way over our little puny human heads, aren't they?
I mean,
I don't know.
It's a question. I hope that we are able to empower ourselves with artificial intelligence, quantum computing. I hope that it's not used to enslave humanity. But again, when you look at the social credit score system of China, you can tell that is a model for globalism.
Oh, yeah.
Literally,
these are all military products.
Yes.
Just by the way, another smaller item out of Bilderberg this week, Estonia was trying to set up the first national cryptocurrency, little tiny Estonia next to Russia. The European Central Bank slapped them down, said, no, you live in the Eurozone, you live by the Euro.
And, that's so surprising because Brexit was such a big thing. Yeah, Brexit was such a big thing, and the European Union has basically done everything it can, not only to survive, but thrive when it should be disbanded. And I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think that's why populism is on this thing. It's not really populism, it's the rise of the people against their governments. And that's the true civil rights movement. It's not the governments. It's really the 99.999% of us against the 0.001% of them. It's not a 1% thing. And we have to realize that, because that 0.001% are colluding together in places like Bilderberg, not for our best interests, but for a total control takeover of humanity. The track, trace, database society has been here for some time now, Aaron, and now they're just trying to figure out what to do with it.
And I would just say to that, I would just add to that, that I think people look at Bilderberg meetings and they look at them a couple of years at a time. But these people, and it's on record in some of these older articles we found, they've actually been meeting every year since World War II. So not 1954, that's just what they say is their official beginning. But informally, they've been meeting since World War II with a dedicated plan. And that plan has not changed. I don't think each year they come and they just pick some topics based on whatever's going on and then chat it up over some, cognac or whatever. They have a dedicated plan. It is something they have been working on since World War II, concertedly every year. So whatever you see this year is related to last year. It's also related to last decade, and it's also related to 1945, 55. I mean, it's all been the same. And we've always been moving towards this same place that we're now headed very fast with technology.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I put in Invisible Empire, A New World Order to find. Out of the Bilderberg meetings, globalism. You helped me on that film. Etnion Davignon talked about how, the European Union was something that was discussed years before at Bilderberg before it came to fruition. And there's so many other examples of that, and that's why we're going to continue to cover it, Aaron. Truthstream Media is going to continue to cover it. Press for Truth is going to continue to cover it. 5
people will cover it.
That's fine. You know what? I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and he was asking me about Bilderberg because I was like, you know what, I'm going to be doing some stuff this weekend. Luke's out there in Italy, and he's like, you've talked about it, so I got him to watch the beginning of Shade. And as he's watching it, he says to me, man, this is really good. This could be on Netflix or anything else. I'm like, thank you. He's like, man, this is some pretty heavy information. And he goes, well, why is this important to you? And I go, well, I'll be dead one day. But the bottom line is my information will not. It will find a way to survive. I truly believe that. We no longer live in an era where you can burn books. You can try. You can delist us, demonetize us, but the information will find a way. And hopefully, I'm not looking to be proven wrong. After all, why would that matter? I'll be dead in the ground. But hopefully that information will empower other people to think for themselves. And maybe we can change this aristocracy. The idea that royalty exists on any level in 2018 is absurd. And I'm not just talking about the European royal family. I'm talking about the Saudi Arabian royal family. The idea that rule by bloodline is still a thing is something obviously we have to work on as a people if we're ever going to take on the true oppressors. But where are the true oppressors? They're in Italy today. They're at the G7. They're at these NATO meetings, my man. Those are more of the puppets of the oppressors. But many a mogul is at this year, many a media man, many a military man, and, people like Peter Thiel, they're not going anywhere, Aaron. Anything you guys want to say on the tail end of this?
Go for it.
We're going to keep at it, I guess. Peter Thiel, he doesn't even need an introduction anymore, so...
No, he's
I just hope they leave room for little people like us.
Yes, absolutely. And, we got to keep our eyes on the technology advisor to the president. That's something people don't really want to acknowledge. Peter Thiel was somebody that used to get criticized. Now he's a hero. I don't know that he's a hero. I think there's a lot of gray matter out there. I think he's a very intelligent guy. Obviously, he's a very cunning guy. But like I said, we're going to keep giving you the real news. We're going to be looking at these people. We know, one of the people we didn't discuss today, Colorado Governor Hickenlooper, Democrat. Hickenlooper. Hickenlooper. Let's be on the lookout for Hickenlooper. He's somebody they may be running in the next presidential election. Maybe not running him. Maybe he's a vice president. Maybe he's a cabinet member.
They've been talking about running him with Kasich.
Hey, when that Colorado River got tainted with industrial waste, he took a good swig on camera. Think what he can do for the country. I don't know. If you don't, if people out there don't know the reference, go look up Hickenlooper drinking water.
It was ridiculous. Oh my god.
He likes to drink that clean, government-approved water.
And then with that,
his dad, was it his dad that also attended Bilderberg in the past, though, decades ago?
I don't know about that.
It was another Hickenlooper. It was another Hickenlooper back decades ago, in the 60s or something. I think so. So it's not a surprise to me that he's there.
Well,
because it seems like some of these people that show up are generational.
Well, again, you got people like John Edwards. You've got people like John Kerry. You've got people like Joe Biden. You've got, obviously, Barack Obama. People that have come as visitors or members or guests. Gordon Brown, that seem to find their way.
Gerald Ford.
Yeah, that find their
Nelson
way.
Rockefeller.
Into
Nixon.
office. Yes, all these people. So, we got a smaller meeting, bigger in size, but I would say smaller in significance, coming up later this summer, a little bit longer, the Bohemian Grove. But this one's definitely we're going to keep an eye on. And, guys, I can't thank you enough for finally doing this. I know I've been at you for over 6 months to try to get you on the program because you guys are so insightful. And it's very true.
We're insulated.
We're insulated because we're trying to finish this film, and it's only 2 people working on it.
It's great to catch up. I mean,
it's great.
We'd love to come back or whatever.
Well,
absolutely.
You'll be
Tell
Luke
back. To hang in there because they're obviously trying to shut people down out there. I think one of the other parts of the post-truth world was they pretty much figured that with some of the bigger independent media players obviously out of the way, they weren't going to have that many. And they probably banked on not having that many, considering what's actually going down this year may be the most important thing that's happened at Bilderberg in 2 decades or more.
Melissa, I don't know what you're talking about. I know that I have some brain force that has made myself. I'm superhuman. I'm superhuman. Roger Stone has anointed me. I will be Alex Jones 2020. Can't do it.
We're gonna keep
Can't
us
do it.
nice.
I know it.
Stop it. I'm serious.
All right,
I'm
guys.
not joking.
Guys, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And again, we're going to be keeping an eye on Bilderberg and to keep an eye out for your film. Thank you again. So, Aaron Dykes, Melissa Melton, Bilderberg 2018, some real insight. You guys know they run an amazing operation out there with Truthstream Media. And, you know, I want to thank the Super Chats that went down while we were here. We got Nitro FZ1. All of you guys are great reporters, and they are great reporters, by the way. Aaron Dykes is one of the smartest people I have ever met in my life. That is not a joke. Like, Aaron Dykes is so well-read, so articulate. His dry humor is amazing. I hope you guys really enjoyed that, because I got to tell you, I enjoyed doing it. I love those guys. I expect a lot from their upcoming documentary, because they are smart people. Now, getting back to Hickenlooper, you can see the tweet above me. We discussed with Luke at the beginning of the show his confrontation with Hickenlooper. Let's read the tweet, because WeAreChange wants to talk to you, Johnny boy. Hey, man, if you're a legit politician, if you want to give some people some insight, you want to do good for the world, why wouldn't you sit down with us? We're cool guys. Shockingly, Colorado Governor and new Bilderberg golden boy, John Hickenlooper, did not want to discuss Bilderberg or the possibility he may run for president in 2020 when asked by @Luke Rudkowski. Why no comment? And listen, we can sit down. We want to sit down with you guys. All right? Go over here to Luke. If you retweet this one, he'll have to pay attention. Where is he? Right here. Let's see. This is the live stuff. This right here, this is Doffner running away. Again, Luke has done such a great job. Let's see. There's Jazeera. There's Larry Summers. We're going to be putting that up soon. Here it is right here, guys. Hey, Governor. Hey, Mr. Hickenlooper. If you want to speak on the record, just follow us back, and we can set up a sit-down interview to clear up all this up, especially for all of your constituents. Also, we got another super chat. I don't know if I gave props to the other guy here, Michael Daily Artist. I know he's given to us before. I thank so much. Steve, thank you so much. We the people thank you for being our voice. I appreciate that. Listen, for real, guys, think about how twisted it is. And by the way, Charlie Skelton, big ups to him. The Charlie Skelton interview, if you haven't seen that also, we got the full thing. You got to go over to the YouTube channel, this channel right here. After you get done, just check out some of these videos for the long ones, but we got the beam. Share them. That man you're looking at right there, Charlie Skelton, did a tremendous job, not only, you know, over this weekend, and it's trying. Do you think that people like myself, people like Charlie, people like Luke, Dan Dix of Press for Truth want to be approached by police officers? The bottom line is, if we lived in a truly open and free society with a press that was the fourth estate, the checks and balances that our government no longer has. You know, our forefathers were very smart. They realized that even outside of the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branches of government that were supposed to have checks and balances on one another, they still couldn't be trusted, and a free and open press was important. But apparently, you know, a baker's dozen so prime ministers, deputy prime ministers, and their representatives, a baker's dozen or so of the most important media outlets, their editors, and the moguls behind their promotion getting together with, you know, the Googles of the world, Jigsaw, Alphabet. Schmidt wasn't there this year. Eric Schmidt wasn't there. He was there last year. He's been there a lot. Seems like something's going on with him. Peter Thiel, though, technology advisor to the president, he's there. He's in full tow. Okay? And that's the deal. And that's why it is so important you guys support us. We've got hooded sweatshirts. They're in just about every single video. Please click on them. If you can go to the page, donate. Tell us what other things to cover. You know, we just did that Mexican series. There's going to be another video out that's very important, not only on the stem cell treatment, which we think is important, but getting people off of opioids, which is important. Again, it's important stuff. And, you know, if Luke Rudkowski isn't going to do it, if Jason Burmis isn't going to do it, if Melissa Melton and Aaron Dykes aren't going to do it, I got news for you. A lot of people aren't doing it for the right reason. They're doing it for the cashola. And believe me, I gotta take care of my family too. I gotta keep the lights on. I gotta keep the internet broadcasting. The cameras are working. You know, the computer are rendering, and my fingers busy. But the bottom line is, we're all going to be gone one day. And are you going to be able to look your kids in the eye, your family members, your loved ones, your friends in the eye and said, you know, I did something. I tried to inform people. I took action. I didn't just buy into the propaganda and have a good time and have this cookie cutter life where my freedoms were taken away day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, and second by second. Folks, I thank you guys all for joining me. We will be back next week. Look for videos all this week, but we always do this live stream. We appreciate your support. We appreciate the super chats. Get those Bilderberg videos out to people. They are super important. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us.